What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Lou Reviews, live episode, your destination. Shit, you guys, I hit this stupid mute button on my microphone. For fuck's sake. Let's start over. Okay. I'm assuming everybody hears me now, right? Manny, you can definitely hear me now, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. So, all right, you guys, I hit this stupid mute button on my microphone. And then there's my stream catching up. All right. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go back to this. All right. Let's just pretend the music started. Everything's cool. And boom, hey, hello. Welcome to Lou Reviews, the destination, your destination for critical thinking in the realm of the unexplained. My name's Luis Elizondo. Please don't forget to smack that like, share, subscribe button and ring the bell. That way you are notified anytime we go live. If you want to support us with the almighty dollar, you can consider checking out the links to our Patreon below. You could also become a YouTube member right here, right now. You can do it. Send us a super chat if you got a burning question. We've got today on the show, we've got investigative filmmaker Manny 503 to revisit his 2022 documentary about Luis Elizondo called Who's Lou. We're going to explore the inconsistencies in Luis Elizondo's life before his public debut as America's newest and most important UFO whistleblower. We're also going to take your questions from the chat. I've got a call-in link, so if you guys want to line up for hour 2, you're more than welcome to do that. Welcome, everyone, to the show. Sorry for the mute button. Everything on my board here was unmuted, so it was very weird. I haven't done that in a while, touching that button right there. So easy. Anyway, hello to everyone in the chat. Zelda 3, Swink McLeod, Robert Vargas, B. Baker, UFO Cholo, Sparky Pilot, Swink McLeod, Morty Matt, Tina Teeden. I know there's a few people I missed here. At the top, Pep Calabria. What's up, everybody? I see all of your warnings. Anyway, hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. So before we bring Manny up, I just wanted to just say, you know, I've had to do a lot, basically an apology tour. I've called people privately, and this was a year and a half ago I did this. And Manny was one of those folks who I called and I had a long conversation with, and I had to apologize for letting my belief system get in the way of the information that he was trying to convey. I went back and I watched Who's Lou, and now obviously you watch it in retrospect, with everything that you know, and it's like, holy shit, I got that way wrong. And I've always said on UCR or this show, when I get things wrong, I'm okay. I'm all right to own up to that. I'm okay to say, hey, I fucked up on that. And when it comes to Luis Elizondo, hey, I fucked up on that. Like, I thought I had him read differently because of my experiences with him, how I met him, the personal relationship that we had built, and then how all of that came crumbling down. And in retrospect, you look at these things and you're like, geez, man, your belief system was really showing. And I see a lot of myself in shows like Vetted. I see a lot of myself in people like Matt Ford. I see a lot of myself, I will never say Thomas Fessler, never. But there are a lot of advocates out there that 2.5 years ago, I would have been big fans of. I would have supported their viewpoints and sort of where they were coming from. I don't know if I would have jumped on board what Matt Ford is doing. During UCR, that is, never personally attacked anyone through the show or through any of our Twitter accounts, because again, we were advocating for a tent. We were advocating for people to come together on this one idea of, hey, let's ask the guys up top, let's ask the guys that we're giving all of this taxpayer money to the answer to some of these questions that a lot of people have questions about when it comes to the UAP, UFO phenomenon, whatever you call it. So now that we have a book coming out, now that we're learning some really interesting things about what Luis Elizondo was up to, and I gotta tell you, as a Cuban who was lucky and blessed and privileged enough to be born in this country, the same as Luis Elizondo, I am shocked at the bravado in which he brags about torturing people. It is hands down the weirdest thing I've ever seen. But there were red flags before that revelation came out. And one of them was being trying to stop free speech, trying to stop people's soapbox, trying to step on ideas. Now, at the time, and as a filmmaker, Manny and I have discussed this, there are things I would have done differently. But the information, the questions that are being asked are really, really good. And I guess that's where we'll start. And this is where we will bring in Manny, filmmaker, and again, investigator into the UFO phenomenon and a few other things. And maybe if we've got time, we'll get into that as well. So let's switch over here. Amber, thank you so much. I saw that for the sub. I appreciate it. Manny, what is happening, man? Are you muted? There you go.
Oh yeah, I just thought that's how we do it here: is come in unmuted or
Yeah,
muted.
yeah,
Sorry, man.
yeah.
Yeah, what's going on? It's good to be here. Thanks for
Uh,
having me on. I
hey
appreciate it.
man, no problem. This is the first time, right, that I've had you on the show, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, this is the first time
Yeah.
that I've been on here.
Well,
Yeah,
welcome. I'm finally happy to have done this. You and I have over the last year and a half have had off-screen discussions. You and I have swapped ideas. I think especially the next 10 years are going to be interesting from filmmaker standpoint on this whole thing. It's going to be interesting how history looks at this, especially if it turns out billions are wasted again instead of millions, in the LSAT program. But yeah, you were right. You were right to question this guy. You were right to question this guy's past. And it's funny, we just saw Ken Klippenstein is being sued by David Grush for 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 basically reporting on his past. Are you afraid? Have you, first of all, because I've already heard rumors from two other people, not rumors but facts, that they have been served letters by an attorney representing Luis Elizondo. Have you received any letter like that?
no, no, never received a cease and desist letter. Never received any paperwork about a lawsuit, and yeah, no, I assume that the state I live in, the statute of limitations for defamation is 12 months. So since I haven't heard anything now, I think I'm safe to say that it's good to go.
Yeah.
Um, I would challenge that though, if that were to happen, and I think that's probably why it hasn't happened, because I think the deposition process would be a
Yeah.
very interesting revelatory process. So I don't think they
Yeah.
want to go there. I think the last thing Lou wants you to have to do is put his hand on a Bible in a court of law and swear that he's going to have to tell the truth, because we all know he
Right.
doesn't really like to tell the truth.
Right.
So yeah, but no, I haven't got anything like that.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, so I guess let's start with I like I said, I went back and rewatched Who's Lou, especially with a fresh set of eyes. It was a lot more fun to consume the second time around. Let's just put it that way. And I was like, okay, yeah, those are great questions. I'd like to know from a filmmaker's perspective, what is your favorite question out of the ones that you were asking about Who's Lou, or in that film? Well, like, what was the question you were like, what the fuck is up with this? Because I know there was some property swapping going on, and we can get into that. There was a weird property moment in I believe Sarasota, you said, where it was like, what a second, who's living here? Like is this another lover? Maybe, who knows? And it's yeah, they're questionable things. But I guess what is the biggest question for you out of that doc that you walked away like you'd love the answer to?
I think for me, the burning question would be the year right before Lou's retirement from the Pentagon. I think it would be the what was he up to with Tom DeLonge? When did he meet? Chris Mellon, Tom DeLonge, Hal Puthoff, all those people. When did all that come in? I mean, according to his book, he's known Hal for a long time, and we're just supposed to assume that they all ended up at TTSA together under some big coincidence. But I think when you look, especially the records that I found on the Huntington Beach apartment that they rented, that was minutes from the TTSA headquarters, and that was close to a year, I think, before his resignation. That shows that he was planning this whole thing for a year. And then when you look at his activities during the year, the email chain that John Greenwald got released, where he's trying to get the go fast FLIR and gimbal footage released, and he's just pushing harder and harder every time he hits a kind of dead end there. It seems like that was a huge part of their plan too, was to get to, for lack of a better term, steal those pieces of footage, because they were classified pieces of video at that time. But to get them into Chris Mellon's hands so he could walk out with them, so they could all show up in California together, and you'd give them to Leslie Kane and Ralph Blumenthal, or use them at TTSA, or however they were going to use him. But that year period from resignation to a year before, to me, I would like to know the truth about. It shows a conspiratorial mindset
Yeah.
that's devious, where his last year of being entrusted with this authority that he built up over the previous 22 years, he just abused that authority to get these footage out, and who knows what else, what other kind of manipulation he was doing during that time.
What do you think he was the guy
Yeah.
that was in that parking lot in the Pentagon that gave that file of the 3 videos to Mellon?
There's no doubt in my mind that he was. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
be shocked and appalled to learn that it was anybody else. But we
And
have.
by the way, that's a story that Christopher Mellon told, and again, that's part of the story that you really focus on in Who's Lou. The documentary, the link to it is who'slouthemovie.com.
Who'sloumovie.com. Yeah, you can watch it there. You can find it on YouTube as well.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and
if you go to the website, then you can look at all the. I was going to say, if you go to the website, you can look at the documents that are in the film while you're watching or listening to the film, and so you can study things a little better that way. But you can watch it on YouTube or Odyssey as well.
Right on. Yeah, I'm going to include that in the when you write Who's Lou in the website, is there an apostrophe for who?
No, just WHOS.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll include that in the description, you guys,
Cool.
so you guys can check that out at your leisure in the description below. So yeah, that is an interesting time period, that year, because if there's one thing I can tell you about Huntington Beach apartments, is they're insanely expensive. Even at that point, is he already earned his post-retirement benefits? Or is he retiring early where he doesn't get to take advantage of those things and he has to work in third party, either, contractors or TTSA?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on military retirement or intelligence government retirement, but he did do 22 years of a 40-year full pension. So it's safe to assume that he's getting, just over a little over half his full pension is what I would expect.
Right.
Which is not, GS-15 is a great pay scale, but it's not FU money. He's not, flying around the world on that. He's got some money coming in from somewhere else.
Yeah, it's not Huntington Beach rent money. That's like, you're talking about anywhere between $4,000 and $8,000 a month to rent an apartment where he was living.
Well, and bear in mind that for that first year, he wasn't actually living there. He was still back in Maryland, but his wife was in California, so they're paying for 2 places. They're paying mortgages or rent or whatever, and on that. So that's expensive. It adds up quick.
Yeah. I could tell you one of the more interesting things that I found about your documentary was this $10 piece of property that his dad got, and then turn around and sold the exact same property to someone for $10 many years later. Do you know what that property was used for and who he ended up selling that to?
Yeah, it was a vacant lot that was across the street from a large nonprofit organization. And the nonprofit organization appears to be extremely above board and helps Cuban refugees get settled here in the States. It helps get them occupational training, housing, figure out how to navigate systems here and things like that. It seems like it's totally above board. And I did a lot of digging into it because I thought it might be a way to hide or shelter money. There's nothing there. It's totally legit. And in fact, somebody else had just sent me something. I'm going to try to find it and I can read it to you. Somebody had sent me something the other day who was a former realtor that talked about that. And they said that the $10 thing is actually kind of normal in real estate, that a contract, in order to be legally binding, has to have a monetary value associated with it. So sometimes people will write a $10 contract for the sale of something and then renegotiate the price later in order to kind of hide how much the property was sold for. But it does look like originally it was given to him for next to nothing, to his dad for next to nothing. And it wasn't the only property. There was another set of duplexes there was triplexes that were sold from the same person that were given to his dad, and there was a business that was sold to the same person from his dad that seemed to all be given to him about the same time. And it looked like it was a property that his dad had rented, and then tried to start a restaurant in, but it failed or whatever. So somebody gave him the property, and then he rented the restaurant property out to somebody else, and the apartment's out. That's kind of how seems like he made his living.
Interesting.
His later
roughly, what year was that? How close was that to his brigade 2506 days?
I don't remember the exact date, but it was well after that. It was I think it was in the 2000s that most of that stuff happened.
Interesting.
So we're well after the 2506 days. Yeah. It is interesting because you think like the 2506 connection, this Cuban NPO, and I'm like thinking conspiracy theories and stuff, and I'm like, I just don't see it there. It seems like it's more altruistic. It's more of that company rented. It seemed like they rented the parking lot from him for a long time, and then he sold it to him. But it was about the time that Lou seemed to come into a bunch of money, which was 2017, 2018. So I don't know. I mean,
when you say I don't know Lou, if he gave his dad money. Senior or junior?
Junior. I mean UFO Lou.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was making a lot of plays at that same time. He bought the house in San Diego that was extremely expensive. Didn't put a lot of money down on it, but 10% or so. And then he also purchased a property in West Virginia. It seems like it was paid for out of cash. So we're talking combined maybe close to $250,000, $300,000 dropped on just those two properties. Which might have been the sale of the home in Maryland. It's always possible. Might not have come from the book or the television show, but I'm pretty sure he was paid a per episode. You know how the business works, man. A guy like him, I'd be shocked if he didn't get a per episode on that.
There was definitely a per episode fee for sure, especially if he's the star of the show. I just don't know what that fee is for reality unscripted television. I'm assuming it's somewhere in the range of $1,200 to $2,500, somewhere in that range. It's non-union. But I'm curious. I'm wondering if, because we start reading his book and he starts talking about how OSAP eventually turned into ATIP. I'm wondering if any of that 22 million got in his pocket to oversee.
That's hard to say. There's a lot of money that went into
like that.
Yeah, you'd have to really look at the timeline, but I have a feeling most of that money was spent in like 2008, 2009. And it was probably while he was not really a big part of it. I mean, ATIP wasn't even really there. OSAP was supposed to have been running. And from what I understand, most of that money, it all went to Bass, so Bigelow.
Yeah.
And a good chunk of it was spent on purchasing properties in Nevada, presumably so that they could get the Kona Blue program when it came through, because they thought it was going to come through.
Right.
Bigelow expected to get a damn flying UFO and have it there, reverse engineer it. So he was setting up a property to do that, because a lot of the money didn't actually make it to the site. As we've heard from interviews with like Chris Bartell, he says, no, I was there and hardly any of the money made it on site. Hardly anything. Right. He's like, at one point I was the only guy out there. And, some of it had to go to Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis for writing those DIRDs, the DIRDs that they wrote. But not 22 million,
we got salary breakdowns, right, for them when they were at TTSA. Is that right?
Some of them. Yeah, I think the director position
of what they were making.
I think the directors, and of which Hal Puthoff was the director of their scientific division. I want to say it was $5,000 a month. It could have been more than that.
You know what?
And that doesn't include any stock bonuses.
I'm thinking of. I'm confusing the two, or mixing the two, with the Danny Sheehan Paradigm Institute papers that just came out. Those guys are making what was it, $125,000, $130,000 a year, and that's just the Paradigm Institute. So you apply that sort of to TTSA.
Yeah, he was the director of the New Paradigm Institute, and when he was the director, he was making, I think, 120,000 a year,
Yeah.
and I think there was 4 or 5 different executives on the board that were making that for
Right.
50,000 or 50 hours a week worth of work, whatever
Yeah.
that means.
Whatever that
Um,
means. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
yeah,
and also that doesn't count like all of the 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 conferences they do and television appearances like he does on the Guy and stuff like that. So I mean, like I'm looking at a small quote institute or organization where they're making 120 grand a year. They've been doing this institute for how many decades now? It's been a little while. It's been at least 10 years. And then I look at TTSA. I'm like, oh well, they had Tom DeLonge and this public presentation to raise money and go public. And yeah, I could now it makes a lot of sense in how first of all they pissed away all the money, but second, it's this idea of yeah, now it makes sense why he had two properties, one in Maryland and one in California, and that he could, well, he doesn't own the property in California, he's just renting it, but still, that's a lot of that's a 6,000, again between $4,000 and $8,000 a month you could pay depending on how big the apartment is and how close you are to the beach. But like, I can tell you, Huntington Beach is not cheap. It makes sense. It's these things start to line up. Obviously, you need more connecting tissue, more evidence to really sort of confirm those things. But what do you think is sort of the best, I guess, connector that we have right now out of Who's Lou? What can we definitively answer out of that documentary today?
well, actually going through the book was confirming for a lot of the historical research that I had done on Lou's childhood and his past, and things like his parents' divorce, when he moved to Miami and I pegged Sarasota when he was like 7, and
Yeah.
he does briefly mention that in the book. Like one time he mentions that one part he's talking about he was in Miami, and then the next part he's suddenly in Sarasota. But we know that
Right.
most of his time was in Sarasota.
Right.
Which, as you know, is what 3.5 hours away from Miami. It's like the complete
Total.
opposite
Yeah.
side of
It's the opposite
complete
coast.
different
Yeah.
beach.
It's as far away from
Yeah,
Cubans as you can get. I feel like, other than New York, Cubans just went to New York and Miami, basically.
yeah, and so there's a little bit of embellishment there, obviously, about his past, and that's confirming. It shows that a lot of what I had researched there was accurate, which I had already
Mm.
felt that it was. I mean, I felt like, honestly, when Elizondo had went on Tom Fessler's show like 3 days after Who's Lou came out, he answered like 2 questions. I think one was about his marriage, and the other was about his children, I think. And those were the only questions that he actually addressed in the response. And obviously, watching the movie, we know that there's probably close to 100 questions, so some that are far more important about when he married Jen. Like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was like small potatoes. Like who really cares if and when he married her? I thought it was interesting that they had represented themselves, and I couldn't find a record of it. It turns out that after he did that, I researched the state and county where he said that they were married, and that the only way to get a copy of that marriage certificate would be to physically walk into the courthouse there with their names and file paperwork. There's absolutely no way to find it online. So I don't beat myself up for not finding that, for
Yeah.
going to every weird county that he's ever lived in and check to see if he was married. Like there's no way you're going to find that information. Yeah, and all the other burning questions. What was he doing that year? When was he that guy in the parking lot? And that's another thing I wanted to bring up. You asked me that earlier. Was he the guy in the parking lot that Mellon describes as an intelligence community official who handed him those videos? We have to. I assume yes, because if you look at the date that Mellon wrote on the outside of the packaging as when he received them, it was less than 72 hours after the date that they were issued to Luis Elizondo. And we know
Yeah.
that because of the DVDs that were released on Mellon's website, and I have copies of them somewhere. I haven't looked at them in a while,
Right.
but
He
there's those
also
3 green
says he also
DVDs.
says he has the original packaging for it as well.
He does, and there's a picture
Mm.
of that. And on the packaging, he writes his name, C. Mellon. He writes the date, and he puts received this date. And it's 3 days after those DVDs were issued to Luis Elizondo, and his name is on there on the DVDs with the date 3 days earlier. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that it was Elizondo who handed them to him. Or I don't know, maybe it was Peter. Maybe he handed them to that Peter Robert guy, and Peter handed them to Lou. It really doesn't matter. We know that within 72 hours of Lou getting them, they were in Mellon's hands in the parking lot. He walked out with them. Classified. Let's just be clear; those were classified videos at the time.
Right.
They were not declassified.
So they had not gone through the DOPSR process.
They had not gone through the DOPSR process. They had not been
all three of them
declassified. Yes, and they were drones, blimps, balloons, and other unmanned aerial vehicles. That's exactly what the form says. It doesn't say UAP. It doesn't say alien spacecraft. It doesn't say, top secret X-57B, whatever. It doesn't say any of that. It says drones, balloons, blimps, and other unmanned aerial vehicles.
Yeah, and when you say it, that means that's the request that Elizondo put in to release these videos. He's asking, hey, Pentagon, can you please release these videos of drones, balloons, blimps, because I need it for a presentation or whatever the excuse is. And the Pentagon's like, no. And he's like, well, I'm going to take them anyway and give them to Christopher Mellon. I think he knows, right? Like, it's because they're mundane. Because if they weren't mundane, he would have been arrested immediately. But then again, even if it is mundane, that's not up to him. Why is he not getting in trouble for that?
In my opinion, the reason that Lou didn't get in trouble for that is because you can't prosecute Lou without prosecuting Christopher Mellon. They were hip deep in it, and they're joined by a chain and an anchor now. If one goes down, the other goes down. And that's the same reason that Lou didn't lose his security clearance. It's the same reason that Lou didn't get prosecuted as Gary Reed wanted. That's it right there. He's got the Mellon protection because Mellon's got political connections and money. It's just that simple. It's flaunting privilege. And I do have that document shared on my screen if you want to pull it up for people.
Yeah. Let's.
I don't know if it's relevant or not.
It's definitely relevant. Why not? If you can zoom in on it, that would be great. I don't know if you can do that on your end. Yeah, that's better. But yeah. If you can't, just break down for us what we're looking at here.
So this is the clearance request for public release of DoD information that was filed by Luis D. Elizondo, and the date on this was, where's the date? I don't know when it was filed, actually. It looks like it was cleared August 24th, 2017.
Yeah.
And then, let's see, he lists his office as SPSMS, which we now know is the National Program Special Management Staff under the OUSDI. And he's calling himself the director of that. And he's saying, I need that. What he signs is, they say, why are you going to use this data? They say here, and he says, not for publication. He guarantees this is not for publication. This is not going to go into the public sphere. This is for research and analysis only, and information sharing with other U.S. government and industry partners for the purposes of developing a database to help identify, analyze, and ultimately defeat unmanned aerial systems threats. And what he's talking about there is, I believe it's called the Scout program at To the Stars Academy, where they were trying to do a database of identifying UAP and analyzing them for threats. And that was something they were going to try to get the public involved in. They were going to make a mobile app and then sell that information back to the Department of Defense.
Just like Bigelow did.
Mass data collection. Yeah, just like Enigma Labs is doing now. And like Bigelow did. Yeah. So right here.
You mentioned Enigma Labs. I want to just touch on that for a second. Any thoughts? I heard it was Peter Thiel maybe behind the Enigma Labs thing.
I did some digging when they came out, and there was two hedge funds that mainly funded them, that were their primary angel investors. I didn't go too far into those because, that's really hard and murky, and you could go down that rabbit hole for weeks and not get anywhere. I don't recall Thiel's name dropping there, but it wouldn't surprise me if he is, or if he was. Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest bit.
It's definitely well funded. Whoever is is funding it has got some money, because the production level of their
I know that.
advertisement is really good. It's really good.
Yeah,
It's not
I know that.
reaching anybody,
I know
but it's
that.
really good.
Well, yeah, and it's a for-profit business. People need to realize it's not a nonprofit. It's a for-profit business funded by
Mm.
private investors. So they're expecting some kind of payday, and it's probably similar to what Joe Firmage had been promising people. I'm going to get these huge DoD government contracts, and we're all going to make a ton of money doing nothing because that's how
Yeah.
kickback contracts work. Kind of
Well,
silly, but
it could
um,
be easily just, hey, this is a DoD program essentially where we're using the public to collect data for us.
for sure, why not? I mean, everybody's
Why
got a cell
not?
phone in their hand.
Yeah, might as well
Why
use
not?
them and tell
Because
them it's
people know
you.
that that's what they're
Hey,
doing.
yeah, it might be a
Yeah,
UFO, and we'll tell you if you got an interesting one. Meanwhile, they're like, okay, um,
right.
well, let's not fly this again over there, or or
Right, that's what I was
whatever.
gonna say. What happens if somebody accidentally captures some of our top secret tech being tested? Then do
Right,
they also have an agreement and an obligation to the government to cover that up and to tell us
right.
it's UFOs and aliens? Like, and if so, then aren't we back in the MJ-12? Aren't we back in the aviary? Aren't we back to Doty? Aren't we back to that same kind of manipulating the public kind of misinformation? Do we really want that? I don't. I don't want anything to do with that crap. Leave me out of it.
Well,
You know.
here's also another layer to this fucking really shady nacho dip, is that let's say you do catch a top secret aircraft or something absolutely insane. Um, Enigma now owns it, so you do not have the right to just post it wherever you want. If you do, they could take it down. Right? Isn't
Yeah,
that
that clause
in
in
their
their terms of
fine
service
print?
is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little section. I read it. Not only that, but they can show up at your house and knock on your door and claim that you give them every storage medium that you have that footage on. They can come
Right.
and take your computer, your cell phone, flash drives, SSD drives, your cloud storage. They can demand that you remove it or give it to them or relinquish it. They own it. So
Right.
forget that. Forget that.
That's insane. Like that, obviously, who is that? Right? Like that sounds like yeah, the Pentagon, Department of Defense is
Sure.
like, okay, yeah, oh, that's a great idea. Just make sure you put in that fine print somewhere that if you do catch something that we deem very interesting, first of all, you're not going to show it. Second of all, we want that fucking hard drive or whatever it sits on. Nobody owns that but us. And here's a handsome
Absolutely.
contract. Here's a handsome contract to pretend that you are an app collecting UFO data for the public.
Yeah, and furthermore, let's say you do catch something cool and you want to license it to a guy like me or a guy like you that wants to make a film with it. They can then show up and ask for that money and say, or deny the license. They own it. It's their intellectual property. They can sell it. They can shelve it. They can do whatever they want with it. And that's, to me, was just like, come on, guys. No, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. And I hope nobody does. I hope people realize what they're
Oh,
signing up for and
a
read the
lot of
fine
people
print
are.
because,
Yeah, a lot
yeah,
of
I
people.
know you recommended them the other day.
Well, here's what's gonna
Oh, sorry.
happen.
We're getting a little
Here's
lag.
No, I think we're a little lagged. If you want, maybe pop out and pop back in, and I can reset the room while you do that, and then
No,
maybe
it's
we
fine.
can.
I'll just give it a second. I'll pretend like you're
You
in
sure?
New York and I'm in LA.
Yeah. Well, here's what's gonna happen with that app is that somebody is going to at some point catch something that looks really cool. And they are going to know, okay, this is weather balloon, either this tech that's about to, whatever. And it goes through an approval process where it's like, okay, yeah, you can use that one and call it an unknown. Yeah, absolutely. Go for it. And now you've got the perfect video to, again, distract. And I wish we had Mick West in here the other day, and I wish I had rebutted with this because as when I thought about it on the listen through, UFOs are a great distraction because when you have a Department of Defense or Pentagon press briefing, the reporters are going in there going, oh, we heard reports about these anomalous UAPs and UFOs, and the public wants to know if they're aliens. That's usually the question, one way or the other. That's where the question leads. It always leans toward it's not Russian, it's not Chinese, therefore it must be, aliens. So can you comment on that? And That's exactly what the Pentagon wants. That's exactly what the Pentagon wants them to ask, instead of, hey, why were there 15 unknown objects sitting above our nuclear facility? What the fuck are those? And don't tell me alien, because it's sexier if it's alien. It's like it is a natural lean. Like, I think people naturally lean, oh shit, did they say maybe alien? It's not Russian, it's not Chinese, maybe alien? I gotta report on it. Gotta ask about that. And I think it does distract. It sets those press briefings off in a wrong direction, where then that bad information is relayed, copied, and pasted 700 times. And before you know it, it's telephone.
Just like we saw in 2017.
Yeah, exactly. It's that game of telephone also, where by the end of it, David Grush has put forth evidence in front of Congress. It's just like, wait a second. No, he didn't. Like, no, he didn't. What the fuck are we talking about here? This is crazy. And so yeah, it's like, it's been interesting the last year and a half, you and I having these conversations in both these spaces and privately, and me just being like, yeah, fuck, sorry, Manny, I got this one wrong, buddy. Like, I got this one wrong. I just got it wrong. And I think it's okay to get it wrong, but once you realize you have it wrong, then what? Like, what do you do then? And I think that's where we have a difference with me and a lot of other content creators out there is they're like, I don't give a shit. I don't care. I don't care. Doesn't matter. Bring on the woo, baby. Mm-hmm. Let's go.
Right. Yeah, who cares as long as you're getting clicks, views, ad revenue, donations. There's a lot of people who who have no integrity, and will just, promote and parrot anything that gets people to watch them, and in some ways, social media is like that. In all genres, it's just really, really bad in our little niche of it. It gets, because it's harmful for one, and you see how easily it is to manipulate. Now we've got people manipulating Congress, literally manipulating Congress and lawmakers by, establishing these bunk stories on social media that are conspiracy theories and stories that have been around for, up to 80 years, some of them. We just had Luis Elizondo claim that Hal Puthoff told him, which is ridiculous. How I know a guy who told me that another guy told him that a friend of his told him that Roswell is real and there was alien bodies. Like, what? Why are we listening to this telephone game hearsay nonsense? It's so ridiculous. And, that's the underlying theme in the book is that it's some guy told me this, here it is. Right. It must be true.
Right.
It must be true because Lou's saying it.
Yeah, because look, he's a war hero, even though his timeline doesn't actually suggest that he served any time in Afghanistan or Iraq. But he did spend time on Guantanamo Bay, and now we learn in the book that he was the Darth Vader of torture, according to some terrorist cells across the seas. Now, he could be making that up, okay? But if he isn't, he's bragging about torturing people, and if it isn't true, he's still bragging about torturing people.
Right. Either way, it's despicable. If it's true, it's despicable. If he's making it up, it's slightly less despicable, but it's still despicable. To put a feather in your cap and say, oh, I was a torturer and I psychically tortured people and I physically tortured them and blah, blah, blah. It's just ridiculous. It's not anything that I would ever admit to or be proud of. But apparently, Lou and I are two very different people, clearly. Thank God for that.
Because he did it using superpowers, and the people that he did it to were part of 9/11, so therefore it's justified.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay, and I totally believe that he has superpowers because, an angel came to visit me the other night and was like, "You're a bad guy for talking so harsh about Luis Elizondo. He's a super soldier savior of humanity. Support him." And then I woke up and laughed, and I was like, "Yeah, whatever, dude. Yeah, I'm having some cool grapes." I'm just kidding. That didn't happen. But
Well,
I
yeah,
assumed that if he had those powers, he would be terrorizing folks like you and me, but he isn't.
right, exactly. Yeah, like if he can remote view anyone to stop talking about him, it would be me. It would be you. Like, come on,
Yeah.
dude. Like, what are you talking about? And this is what McGowan was telling me earlier in, a couple of years before, all of this shit went down. McGowan was like, yeah, it's felt like he was somebody, did you call him Lurch? Did you call, Sean Cahill Lurch?
Yeah, that's what I call him. He reminds me of
Okay,
Lurch.
yeah, it's such a
You
great
know?
descriptive. It's such a great character in fiction to tie him to. Um, he is. He's like Lurch, but he
He's
was
like
like,
Louis Butler, Yeah.
yeah, yeah. He was. He said it felt like Jeremy was priming him to get a super soldier remote viewing story from Lou in the other room.
Yeah, McCowan's narrative of that just really speaks to it all about how he's got Sean Cahill there pumping someone for information,
Yeah.
clandestinely bringing it back to Lou, and then Lou feeds that information back to someone a day or two later and is like, "I'm a psychic," like that's some grifty ass carnival barker, crystal ball reading scam right there is what that is. Like, it's ridiculous. It's so pathetic, and I'm glad that McCowan caught on to it. I'm really glad that he was observant enough to catch that and be like, "Oh, this is cringy. This is cringy."
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if all of Lou's stories are, and you have to think that they are. Is remote
Oh
viewing powers
man.
in Afghanistan. All that stuff.
Well, I got not made fun of, but people were like talking shit about when I said this. But when Lou was describing when he met Jay Stratton, and what was the lady's name? It was like something Kane, like Miss Candy Kane.
It's a fictional name.
Yeah, it was a fictional name,
was,
right?
Rosemary.
Yeah, Rosemary. But what was the full name he used? Was it Rosemary Kane or something like that? Anyway,
yeah, it was ridiculous.
But what was hilarious to me is how he attached what clearly was his wife's bona fides to this mysterious woman that was with Jay. It was his way of saying, "Hi, babe, I love you." Like, to me, that's the way I read it. And it was so obvious because he was like, "Oh, this 6-foot blonde, she was Russian, she knew about Cuban coffee," which is like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, because Jennifer Elizondo is from Miami, right? She's from Florida. She grew up in Florida anyway.
California originally, but yeah.
She's of Russian heritage. I know she's, from what I've heard, she speaks Russian. She also works in the intelligence community, from what I've heard. She's 6 foot. I heard she's a tall woman. She's much taller than Lou. We've seen that in the pictures. She's blonde. Like, I was like, oh, this is Jennifer Elizondo that he's putting in this book without saying her name. And so all of those descriptives fit the person who was with Jay Stratton, the mysterious lady that was with Jay Stratton.
Rosemary,
if I had to roll the dice in the UFO casino, I would, or put my money on a black or red situation, I'd put my money that it was just Jay Stratton in that room, and he made up that lady.
Even he was there.
Because you know why? He drops her. He doesn't mention her at all again. So clearly she wasn't important.
That very first mention, and that's it. Like that first day, and then never again in briefings. It's always Jay and Hal from there on out. And Jay and Hal.
Where'd she go? Where'd she go? You never once had a reference. I mean, you guys hit it off. Clearly, you guys connected in the description that you put there. So where the fuck did she go? that again, that's why I was like, hey, this is Jennifer Elizondo in the book, right? You know, so I wanted to just touch on that because I know I got a little bit of shit, but it makes sense to me. I mean, this book is what's how Steve Camion would put, a massive circle jerk to himself. He's just patting himself on the back, and in the, especially with the forward from Christopher Mellon, and then he starts talking. Like, the first chapter reads like the intro to Mission Impossible. It really does. Like, he is trying to write this in a way where a producer picks it up and goes, holy fuck, I gotta tell this story. And you know what? They will. They will pick it up, and then they will turn it into their own thing, embellish it, and make this guy look like this badass Jason Bourne UFO whistleblower, when in fact he didn't do dick. He didn't do a fucking thing. But who cares? He's got a movie. Who gives a shit? At that point, he's definitely made millions off his story. He gets residuals. He gets his IMDb credit. He can say he helped produce a film, because I'm sure he'll get a producing credit on it from some, or a consulting credit for sure, because he'll be consulting on the film. Like, it'll be a shit show. It'll be an absolute shit show. But that's what the book reads like. That's what it is. And I think it's a piece of shit. Honestly, I don't even think it's that great of a fiction. Personally.
It's not. I agree with you. It kind of, I've described it a couple of ways. I said one is that it sounds like a high school student's X-Files fan fiction. And another way that I've described it is that it's 10% Lou Elizondo's fantasies and 90% Hal Puthoff's manifesto. You know,
Right.
So, and that's kind of what you're seeing there is all these stories from Hal Puthoff, either by way directly from Hal or fed through Kit Green or Eric Davis or, you know, somebody else, but they're all, it's all just this weird hodgepodge of stories. And then there's a really interesting stuff like his retelling of the Mattis incident, where Mattis was, you know, like that. There's that Tom DeLonge video, which I've got queued up. We can play for people if you want, where he's describing how Lou told him the story. Let's play that so people know what we're talking about. Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
This is great, folks. If you don't have a bucket of popcorn and a Coke, get them now. Is it up? I can't see. Is it up?
It's up, but I don't hear it. Yeah. I don't hear any audio. Do you hear it on your end? Yeah. I don't hear it on mine. That's weird.
Let me restart it then. If the audience can't hear it, let me try something like this.
Okay.
Special forces operative, like soldier. You know, he fought the Taliban in Afghanistan like a month after 9/11 with Secretary of Defense Mattis, General Mattis, Mad Dog Mattis. Mattis saved his life. He got pinned down in a machine gun fight, and he called for air support. He said there's nothing in the area. He said, I looked at my friend. I said, we are going to die. We're dead. Like 100 of them shooting, and they're pinning me on a rock. Then he heard something on the radio with Mattis comes flying in on like one of those Bradley vehicles, saying, the big door flies back. Okay, boys, teacher's office. I'll get you in a second. He's on the automatic grenade launcher, just wiping people out. You know, Lou said he's on the ground just looking up at this guy, sunset kind of thing. Like, who the fuck is this guy? You know, and he saved his life. You know, so Lou came from like really being in war to moving up to a place where he had a lot of responsibility, a lot of very sensitive things. And
yeah, that's great, especially when you read. No, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No. So I was gonna say real quick. Yeah, it was a little hard to hear, but I bumped it up as much as I could, and I think for the podcast version, I'll just replace it with the actual audio. But just in case you couldn't hear, that was Tom DeLonge basically describing a war story told by Lou Elizondo, in which General Mattis saved him by coming in on a Humvee, you know, sat atop of it with some huge machine gun providing cover fire for Luis Elizondo. And there is no record anywhere that anyone can find of this. There's no record of Luis Elizondo under serving in the theater of war as far as like field time. You know, who knows? Maybe there could be information that comes out that contradicts that. But if we're going by the timeline that Manny's provided in Who's Lou, as far as where he's been, where he was around the world, there was at no point. First of all, like 9/11 happened well after he joined into the military, and he tells people publicly that 9/11 was the reason he joined, and he went into the military. He felt this call to arms, you know, like, and turns out, yeah, no, that's not true at all. He was in the military in 98. Like, he graduated high school in 90. He went to college. The thing I was very impressed with was his degrees at the University of Miami in microbiology, and what was the other one?
Immunology was the second.
Immunology. And that's interesting too, because isn't that Gary Nolan's expertise? Immunologist?
Yes. And honestly, I confirmed that with the university to confirm that he had a double major. It was immunology, virology, and then biology. So he's actually had 3 majors. Like that's not dumb. That's no dummy.
That's that's the fucking conundrum, isn't it? It's the paradox, because when you really investigate this guy, and again, when you've interviewed this guy 7 times and you talk to family members and his wife and stuff like that, and then you talk to the people who've been to his house and have ridden in trucks with him and have been on TV shows with him, have spent real genuine time around him. Then you talk to the production teams that actually filmed things around him. And then you talk to other podcasters who've caught him in lies about his tattoos. And you start to, what the fuck is going on? Again, who's Lou? Like, who is this guy? Like, he's got 3 degrees in 3 subjects that are incredibly difficult to master and study. Then he disappears, so to speak, in the military as a counterintelligence officer, and the only real sort of confirmation of where he was on an island that was known for torturing people, and then turns around and brags that, yeah, that was me.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell is this guy?
It's crazy. It's crazy. And I think in a alternate reality, if he'd have taken a left at a certain branch in his life, he would be a really interesting guy to talk to and to hear his stories and to see what he had done in life. But instead, he took a right, and he went down this weird path. He went down this path, you know, and it was bureaucracy, mundane life, you know, riding the bus or the train across the bridge with his pal Peter every day to work, where they worked in not even a cubicle at the Pentagon. They worked at a business park a block and a half down the street from the Pentagon. You know, it's kind of sad. You know, like, I mean, he had all this prospect and hopes, but I mean, what do you think? I mean, like, he joined the military as an enlisted guy, even though he had a college degree with triple majors. Like, he could have gone to the officer candidate. He could have been an officer. He could have been, you know, gone past that GS-15 pay scale that he was, you know, he could have gone and been all the way up to, you know, chairman of the Joint Chiefs if he wanted to at some point.
Unless he thought, and this is what it seems to be sort of a theme with him, unless he thought that the other path was going to be easier and more lucrative. You know, because the other side of it,
a big fish.
Yeah.
Oh, well, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say the other side of it is TV shows, books, movies, podcasts, GQ covers, like the list goes. 60 Minutes, you know, New York Times. Like, you get to be quasi famous. You know, you get to be looked at as a hero. There's a lot of aspects to choosing that route, where if it was pitched to you, hey, can you be the meat shield on this UFO discussion? We want you to put this narrative out there that this shit is real, and it's going to work on a few different levels. First of all, it's going to get distraction from the press and the everyday asshole to pay attention to the aliens. And really what we're going to do is get Congress to pay attention to this part of the sky that they refuse to congressionally mandate. And so now we've got control of this part of the sky, and we can genuinely look at things. And that spreads out into apps like Enigma, that spreads out, like all over the place, right? But the cool thing about it is you get to be this famous guy. The bad thing about it is, yeah, at some point people are going to start to hate you because, well, you're lying to them, and they're gonna figure it out, but don't worry, play it cool. You'll still get contracts. And one of the things that that you had played in your doc was the moment where Fessler asked Lou about his job within the contracting world, and that was a question that he had asked based off of a question that we asked on UCR at the time, and that was and that question came from McGowan, because McGowan wanted to know if he had a GS 15, or I'm sorry, I'm getting the classification confused, where he has top secret clearance. He wanted to know if Elizondo had top secret clearance in the job that he had. And so that's why we asked that question, because he did confirm, yes, indeed, he needed a top secret clearance to work at the contracting job that he currently holds. And so then now that opens up the door to some nefarious shit. Some nefarious shit, because there's no reason why Lou Elizondo, honestly, and I think this is the biggest reason why you get guys like Sheehan and all of these idiots yelling at the top of their lungs for these whistleblower protections, because he's not in the military anymore, and he's saying all of this stuff without the actual whistleblower protections because he no longer serves. So they want post-retirement whistleblower protections as well, so that way he can just say whatever the hell he wants and not be sort of held accountable to it.
Yeah, and he definitely, if that were the case, then he could leak information about known man-made systems and top secret projects, and then just say, oops, I thought it was a UFO because that was the cover story, or that's what somebody told me when I asked, or whatever, which ultimately I believe is the agenda, their plan B. Before we get too far off the Mattis thing, I want to iterate one thing, though. The video that we played, as people were watching and listening to, pay close attention, because as Elizondo told that story to Tom DeLonge, he was on the ground. Elizondo was on the ground. It was his men. It was his troops. It was this. Right. Go and read that section in the book, and you'll find out that he tells it differently in the book. He doesn't say that it was him. He just says it was some of Mattis's men that he saved, and then regals this huge story. Right. Could have been a story you heard from a guy who heard it from a guy who heard it from a guy who heard it from a guy. But that right there is a very fine indicator of what Elizondo does, is that he'll hear a war story like that, and then when he retells it, he'll plop himself in the middle of it as if he's the guy who was doing it. And that's fairly common. I had a buddy who came back from the Middle East who was the same way. He was going with every story. And I was like, how many MOSs did you have over there? Like, well, Jesus Christ, dude, if I believe you, you did everything from capture bin Laden to chase down Saddam to, right. You were the guy. Like, right. We didn't need to put anybody else there but you.
No, he was Jason Bourne.
It turns out he was the guy in the tank.
Yeah, the way he describes it, he was Jason Bourne. That's the best way. He was the UFO Jason Bourne, and he was everywhere doing everything. He was torturing over here. He was saving Mattis over there. He was serving his country in other ways over here. Like, yeah, he was a spy. He was a super soldier. He was fucking torturing combatants with his remote viewing capabilities. He was doing all sorts of weird shit. Like, he's a super soldier. Pretty soon, we're gonna.
Bourne meets Rambo meets. It's all there. Every single trope, James Bond. It's all in there, and it's so fantastic that you almost have to. You can hear that when he's telling the story, his tongue's lodged in his cheek, and he's just like, I don't know who's believing this, because we all know it's bullshit, but I'm gonna tell the story anyways.
Yeah.
People like Tom DeLonge believe it.
Let me read directly from the book about his Darth Vader of torture, and I'll go ahead and bring this up. It's going to be a little smaller than it normally is, but this is it. So this is from the book. My work with Guantanamo Bay brought endless rounds of drama and stress. An attorney for one of the 9/11 suspects labeled me in open court as the, quote, U.S. czar of torture, end quote. From that moment, I would forever be branded by some as the nation's Darth Vader. At one point, I was informed that Europe had issued an open arrest warrant for me. Europe. Like, he is Jason Bourne. Yeah, Europe has issued an arrest warrant for Luis Elizondo, yet he's been there a few times. And anyone involved in the notorious rendition, detention, and interrogation program of high-value detainees. You said you did some research on the RDI program, and that was one of like the darkest corners of the torture program on Guantanamo Bay. Like that literally was the core of guys doing it. The International Court of Human Rights had decreed that any U.S. intelligence officer involved in that effort would face trial if arrested. From my perspective, I was serving my country and my president and preventing another 9/11. So he's justifying himself torturing people. First of all, habeas corpus, Magna Carta, the entire point I'm forgetting the resolution, but first of all, it's been shown that torture doesn't get you accurate information. It doesn't work. At some point, they're tortured to a point where they'll just tell you anything you want to hear, and the information is just no good. And that was proven with the sample size of torture that had happened in Guantanamo Bay. You would figure after all of the statistics and all of the facts that have come out about torture, especially since these programs existed on Guantanamo Bay, you figure the first thing you would say is, yes, I was part of these programs and I fucking regret it. I wholeheartedly wish I had not done it, but at the time I was serving my country. I thought I was doing the right thing. There's a couple of things about this. First of all, if Luis Elizondo was labeled in open court as the U.S. czar of torture, wouldn't there be a news article referencing this moment in
it's possible,
court?
yeah.
Because
or a FOIA document would get it the same way that we got faceless bureaucrat. That name, faceless bureaucrat. I think that was from a FOIA document that John Greenwald got.
It was. Yeah. But I would venture to say, because he says it here, because if it's open court, how the fuck did I would forever be branded by some as the nation's Darth Vader. He had an arrest warrant from Europe, and let's see here. Yeah,
and don't forget he told John Greenwald that he was on an Al Qaeda hit list too. You know,
right? Well, that's essentially what he's telling, right? Like, you know, I'm sure it was Al Qaeda calling him the czar of torture. But all I'm saying is Al Qaeda. If Al Qaeda heard about it, you know, if these people outside of the court were labeling him this, then at some point that name Luis Elizondo leaked out to the terrorists that it was him torturing their friends at Guantanamo Bay. You know what I'm saying? I just feel like there would be a journalist or some, like, even movies have been made about this camp in Guantanamo Bay. You figure a short, stocky Cuban guy would have been in the script somewhere. You know, if he was the Darth Vader of torture in Guantanamo Bay, wouldn't he be publicly known?
There's two thoughts on that. One is that, yes, if that were public knowledge, then everyone would know it. And the other is that the opposite end of the coin, which is that if he was actually this czar of torture at Guantanamo Bay, that information would probably be classified and none of us would know. But we can't have it both ways, you know, like it should either be one or the other. And since he's talking about it in the book, we know it's not classified because every bit of information in the book has passed DOPSAR and has been cleared for public release. So there should be something out there. Something. I mean, can we find it?
Yeah,
maybe.
Maybe
it doesn't exist. I mean,
I bet
maybe he's making it up.
Dude, I think this is a tall tale. I think this is a tall tale because if you were that well known for torturing people, you wouldn't be parading around the world, taking trips in Europe and then, in the United States as this UFO fucking whistleblower. Like, I mean, like, what? I mean, how sort of naive do you have to be like, oh no, it's okay, they'll love me, don't worry, they won't care about the torture, the UFOs are way
Right, or
more
they just
important.
forgot about it, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah, they
no
love
big
me.
deal.
That's why he went to London for GQ. He went to, where was it, Catalina for the International UFO Convention. I mean, he's jet setting around Europe with a Starbucks in one hand and a pint of apple juice in the other. And, but he's got this arrest warrant. It's ridiculous. It's silly. I don't believe it for a second. I think it's embellishment. Um, I don't think that war crimes are the type of thing that just kind of go away. So, yeah, it sounds like a tall tale. I have a feeling that, and this is a feeling I got from reading the book and reading through his Wikipedia entries the other day, is that he went to Wikipedia and everything he thought he could take credit for, that he knew that DOPSAR would pass because it's bullshit and has not classified because it's bullshit, he put in the book. Why not? Why not just embellish and say that he was in charge of Camp 7? Why not say that he was the czar of torture? He knows that, it's a memoir and it's not a fact check book. There's not going to be a bibliography at the end with links to his articles to support this. I guarantee it. He's not going to cite sources.
Right.
Yeah, it was San Marino, sorry, where the international convention was. Michael Huntington, thank you for that.
Right.
So he's jet setting around the world. He's not fearing for his life. Even though he wore a bulletproof vest to the MUFON symposium in the first one he did, 2018.
Man. He's a showman.
And he says that he's been threatened, but yeah, it's all BS, man.
Dude, he's such a showman.
I mean, if I could track his whereabouts through Who's Lou for all of his adult life, I mean, there was only 3 years I think I found that I couldn't account for his whereabouts. It's safe to assume that Al Qaeda or somebody else could use open source technology just like I did to find all that information and go after him if they wanted to, and they didn't, and they haven't because they don't care.
Another thing that another thing that he mentions in the book, and this is something that I'm not here, this isn't happening, aka Pip. He says, were all the orbs all this time? He didn't mention them until now. Like he didn't even mention orbs during his Lyndall Moulton Howe interview, and that was the only interview he ever gave where he shared his UFO experience. So like, where the fuck did these orbs come from?
Yeah, like why all of a sudden now in the book, of all of the bombshell revelations to put in the book, that's the least of them. That's like, who cares? Anyone can claim to see an orb. Like, whoop-de-doo, so you saw an orb in your house and the green ones are bad and the blue ones are good. Oh wait, the blue ones are bad and the green ones are good. Who cares, man? And I think people have pointedly asked him if he's ever experienced or seen something like that. Not a fucking mention.
Yeah.
No mention about being a psychic angel warfare, spiritual warrior, similar to the men who stare at goats. Now in the book, he says that when he was in the army, before he even got in the DIA, when he was in the army, they taught him how to remote view.
Well, he would privately tell stories all the time about his remote viewing capabilities, but he would never publicly never publicly address those. And this is I think he was saving all of that bullshit for the book.
There's the one time they mentioned him at Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, they're talking about him telling a bullshit story like that at a dinner over steak tartare about him using the remote psychic viewing powers to save the lives of his unit in war-torn Afghanistan. I'll never forget that line.
Yeah.
He does tell that same story in the book, and he talks about how he was allegedly in a war zone. He's got his unit with him, and they're walking up to a building, and he gets a funny feeling in his bones, and he says, guys, don't go in there. So they let an allied unit go in instead who got blown up by an IED. And I'm like, you let our allies get their fucking lip? You let them be the cannon fodder? And this is our hero right here. He didn't say, guys, don't go in there. There's a bomb. I saw it in my mind. Just don't do it. He's just like, hey, you're from Germany, right? Go ahead and get in there, man. You're from the UK, Australia. Go ahead. You're expendable. I'm not. Go ahead and jump on that landmine for me. But this is our hero. This is our savior. This is, 3 combat tours, super soldier, fucking, master interrogator, Darth Tsar, whatever, man. It's just, It's ridiculous, man. Like,
and then there's this also the flip side of this coin is that they're also selling this new religion, because between Jim Semivan and Hal Puthoff and Scientology, they're also selling this gods, angels, aliens sort of idea. This is something that Stephen Greenstreet highlighted from his book. And this is from the Elizondo book. Jim theorized that if the distance between humans and angels is large, was it not probable that other beings existed between the purely spiritual angels and the flesh and soul creatures known as ... humans? Question mark. Was it possible an entire ecosystem of divine and semi-divine life forms existed in an invisible ecosystem? And this is the kind of jarble pseudoscience fantasy lore bullshit that they put in these books, and then fucking people turn around and host 18-hour Twitter spaces dissecting what this means. And it's like, this doesn't mean a fucking thing. Like, he doesn't even know if it's he's like ... as humans. Like, you're not even sure who the fuck you're talking about.
right.
What is this garbage? Like, it's so, this is the guy who's got degrees in immunology, microbiology. This is the war hero. We're theorizing about fucking divine and semi-divine life forms and what exists between them when we don't even have evidence of that stuff. It's a religion.
Yeah. And it's another well-known UFO trope, Nephilim breeding with humans, hybrids. I mean, like, it's all in here. The whole kit and caboodle of ufology, debunked conspiracy theories and trope is all in this book. And most of them, he doesn't even like put himself in. It's just, Jim told me this. Hal told me this. The general from, Brazil told me this. And it's not even, there's no evidence other than so-and-so told me.
Right.
That's it. It's story time with Papa Lou. Story time.
Story time with Papa Lou. I love it. Yeah. It used to be a lot of fun story time. Now it's just fucking stupid. So this is a graph I pulled up, an image from the book. This is Luis Elizondo's UFO book, has graphics showing how alien flying saucers operate inside spooky space bubbles that harm human beings. And so here we've got distance and effect. We got 50 meters, 100 meters, and 150 meters. And phase 1 is 150 meters, phase 2 is 100, and phase 3 is 50 meters within this craft. At 150 meters, you get superficial burns on the skin similar to a sunburn. In phase 2, which is 50 or 100 meters, you get, this is a football field, okay? 100 meters is a fucking, or is it 100 feet? It's 100 feet, excuse me.
100 yards.
So 100 feet, you get internal organ damage and changes to your brain. Within 50 feet, you experience time dilation. I can tell you right now, I was definitely within phase 2 when I saw my UFO. Maybe you could say I have brain damage, but I don't have any internal organ damage. I didn't have a sunburn. I didn't have any form of time dilation, and I got pretty close to what I saw. So how does what about me? That doesn't make any sense. It's just, but like, where did he get this from? Where did he get that from?
That, I believe, comes from Gary Nolan. That's the story that Gary Nolan has studied that he did about people who were damaged from UAP and aliens.
Yeah, a study that
you have
he
to
actually
really dig into that.
He didn't do a study on that. Has he ever linked the article where or have you seen the interchange I had with him when I was like, you didn't write a paper on aliens and the certain part of the whatever part of the brain he was labeling and talking about, and he's like, I did, I wrote a paper, there's a scientific paper that links an article that yes is a paper, but it has to do with schizophrenia and brain damage and things that it didn't mention NHI or aliens once in the entire paper. or UAP or anything. There was no comparison to those things whatsoever. And I questioned. I was like, "What is this?" Because I showed my sister, who's a doctor. I was like, "Hey, I'm kind of getting this from the paper." She's like, "Yeah, that's about right." And there's also this and this, but yeah, there's nothing to do with aliens, obviously, in this. I was like, okay, I just want to make sure. And of course, as soon as I bring up those points to him, radio silence. He doesn't say a fucking thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, it's the same old garbage. I think Michael Huntington again says Kit Green BS, and he's right. This is all the same stories from Hal to Kit, Kit to Hal, and then they leak to Gary Nolan. They go to Lou Elizondo. As Stephen Campion would say, it's the circle jerk. It's them just pointing to each other and going, "Oh, he said it, so it must be true." And he said it must be true. He said it must be true. Well, you repeat a lie enough times, it becomes truth, or it becomes believable. It's not true, but it is believable, and that's all that people will understand. That's all that people are hearing out there, because there's a lot more people out there who are like the Matt Fords, who are like the people who don't care if they just get views and will repeat it to get the views. And there's a lot more of them than there are people like us who will sit here and call it out. As you know, it's not nearly as financially lucrative to be a skeptic or a debunker or to call bullshit on some of this stuff. I mean, you get a lot more attention and money for doing it the other way.
I am the proof in the pudding on that. Like, I've shown how much money I was making. Oh shit! Did my audio just go out? Can you still hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Oh, okay, weird. I don't see. Oh, okay, there it is. That's why. Oh, sorry, that just freaked me out after the audio issue we just had earlier. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so here's I kind of lost my train of thought, but this is something I wanted to bring up here because I love Average Chris, Aerotech Space, former veteran, and he's one of the best resources on Twitter when it comes to DoD contracts, retirement, how classifications work, where you can go, what you can look at, what you actually have access to versus what you're saying you have access to, things like that. And of course, he put his 2 cents on Lou Elizondo's book saying, this is disgusting. As a veteran, seeing this type of bullshit in a book for profit by another, in parentheses, non-wartime veteran. So now you've got a veteran calling Lou Elizondo a non-wartime veteran, lying about what he
Lou, turn your mic up, man. People are saying they can barely hear you.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that. Yeah. Hello? Check. All right. Can you guys hear me a little better now? That should be better. Maybe I was just away from my mic. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. Thank you for that. So, let's see. Yeah, it was weird. We had like a little weird reset here in the system. So sorry, guys, if things went a little strange there. Okay, so I'll reread this. This is from Average Chris, a veteran, criticizing Lou Elizondo on his book. And he says, this is disgusting. As a veteran, seeing this type of bullshit in a book for profit by another non-wartime veteran lying about what he was involved in with government service is gross. This is the equivalent to hashtag stolen valor displayed in writing by Lou Elizondo. And he's referring specifically to an excerpt from his book that says, as a test, we all gathered together in a secure facility at the Pentagon with our brown bag lunches and attempted an act of group remote viewing. We directed our conjoined thoughts toward a specific terrorist in the cell. None of us had any sympathy for this ruthless killer who gleefully took the lives of our comrades. I wondered if we would leave a real impact on him. Something happened, all right. Months later, we learned that a terrorist had told his lawyers that the CIA had sent 5 angels to disrupt his sleep. 5 figures washed in a white light stood over his bed and shook it violently, leaving him terrified. He felt that judgment was upon him. He shared the story with his attorney, and the tale later ended up in a mainstream newspaper article about the secret CIA program being used to harass his client. I told Hal Puthoff what we had done. He was not surprised. So there you have it. I mean, he's comparing himself to an angel, which is hilarious. I don't know why a Muslim man would say 5 angels came to him. Very strange.
And that the CIA sent them. How would you? Why wouldn't you think that God sent angels, not the CIA? I mean,
Right.
what? It's
Right.
strange. There may or may not be truth to this. I was able to. I looked for that article and was unable to find it.
Of course you weren't
I did a
able to
lot of
find it.
searching.
Yeah. I also
But actually, I did. I was able to use ChatGPT with some creative prompts to find a likely name for the article. It looks like it may have been March 11th, 2013, an article by a gal named Judy. I forget her last name. I'll have to look it up. It was a New Yorker article called "The CIA's Secret War in Guantanamo." Haven't been able to find a copy of it yet, even though the AI says, "Oh, this is probably the one you're talking about." So I'd like to try to find it and confirm it. But I spent probably 3 hours on the New Yorker site last night going through their archives trying to find this article because I want to know exactly what was said. But it sounds, again, kind of like another story that Lou read and put himself into. Perhaps like his Gray Fox stuff, perhaps like his Guantanamo Bay stuff, like maybe it wasn't him, just like his Mattis story, where it definitely wasn't him. It was one of Mattis's guys, and it was a war story he heard, but he just plops himself in the middle of it. Well, that may very well be what he's doing here. That's what I believe he's doing here. I guess we'll have to find that article to see. If anybody else out there finds it, let me know, and get with me after the show, and I'll give you as much information about it as I was able to find. So hopefully we can find it.
Yeah. Well, good luck. I don't think you're going to find it because maybe you find the article, but I bet there's no reference to that story in the article. Dude, this is just, it's a silly sort of moment that we're having right now with this whole thing. And it's kind of hard to put a read on it, dude. It's like, what the hell is going on here? Is this another sort of OSAP 2.0, where they're just literally just a bunch of rampant believers running roughshod within our Department of Defense system, and they've figured out a way to say whatever the hell they want and also lobby government for more dollars to study spooky shit.
That's precisely what they're doing. That's exactly, in my opinion, why Elizondo and Matt Ford and those guys set up the nonprofit organization that they did, because the UAPDA, if it goes through as written right now, authorizes the expenditure of certain studies to private nonprofit organizations. And who do you think is going to grab that money up? Basically it's TTSA again. It's the CRDA. It's not even a CRADA. They're just trying to bypass all that because that was a pain in the butt and there was accountability. Now they're just trying to get a grant from the government to study UFOs under the UAP Disclosure Act, which is why I hope that if it does pass, that section's gone among a couple others, but or that it doesn't pass at all because it's kind of useless at this point. We have Arrow already. It's there. Use it. You know, if there's a whistleblower out there who's got evidence, take it to Arrow. You got whistleblower protection. You got amnesty. You've got a mandate by law to investigate. It ain't going to get any better, folks.
Right.
If there's somebody out there who's got a smoking gun, now is the time to release it. Not only will you become a hero of humanity and your name will go down in the annals of history, but you'll be protected from God on high. You won't even have to run to Russia like Snowden did. You won't have to go to jail like Reality Winner did. You won't have to, or Chelsea Manning. You'll just be able to get your story out there and look like $1 million for it and have the story of a lifetime to sell, not a made-up book that you're hoping, somebody at Lifetime turns into a movie of the week, like Elizondo's got. Now's the time, whistleblowers. If you got the goods, do it. Otherwise, I'm assuming that they're not out there. They don't exist.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist.
Well, I was going to quickly go over some of the chapters. Panda's asking actually a pretty good question here, but I just find it funny that if you want to know if there's answers in this book, just read the chapters that he's laid out here. He's got searching for breakthroughs, the USS Roosevelt, the aha moment, what now, the 800-pound gorilla, ... and the horse you rode in on, which is like, go fuck yourself, and the horse you rode in on. The three heads of Cerberus, and out of the airlock. All the small things, which I'm assuming is Tom DeLonge's part of the story. The war plan, the next level of disclosure, and New Horizons, chapter 25. There's nothing in here that says, okay, here's the breakthrough. Here's the, here's disclosure. Like nothing of that in these descriptions. But Pan asks a good question, and he writes, thoughts on Elizondo pinning the leak on Project Unity. Manny is awesome. Great guest, Lou. Appreciate it. Yeah, I agree. I think Manny has been a great guest so far. I'm going to pull up exactly what was said there, but while I do that, yeah, what are your initial thoughts on that, Manny?
It's funny because Unity said something about that, and Jason Sands responded, and he's like, Lou never said that. I never said that. And I had to go back and listen to the audio a couple of times until I'm like thinking, well, Jesus, God, if you didn't say that, you sure implied it pretty heavily, because you ask him point blank about the leak, and he says, J Project, Lou's response is, J Project Unity hates me. He doesn't necessarily say that he leaked it, but he does say that he hates him. I don't remember the name of the person who I looked it up. There was a name that was of the person who uploaded it to Scribed, which it's not up there anymore. They had it taken down. But it was on Scribed, and it wasn't J Unity. It was some weird name that I'd never heard of. Which, by the way, I don't know. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I downloaded a full copy of it off of Scribed before they took it down. I'm sure other people did. So there's still copies floating around out there of it. It's not, I'm not going to leak it out to everyone and be like, oh, go read it. I'm not trying to hurt his book sales by any means, but since it was out there, I feel the need to comment on it. And I went through it with a fine tooth comb, and I didn't see not one piece of direct evidence was offered for any one of his sensational claims in the books, folks. Not one. Everything was a story he had heard from somebody else, or so was hearsay, and had no backing evidence. And very few of the stories were actually him firsthand, and the ones that were heavily embellished, like this person who was his wife that was allegedly like the characteristics of his wife, but was supposedly some girl who walked in with Jay Stratton to brief him on OSAP and other things. It's fan fiction, and not very good written fan fiction, like pretty poor. But I don't think he released it. Maybe he did. Who knows?
Well, Jay put out a really long explanation, and I'll read some of this, and then I'll give you my reactions to it. He writes, I want to make crystal clear for the record that I had absolutely nothing to do with the leaking of any context of Lou Elizondo's book. I also do not hate Lou. I do not hate anyone. I don't believe I have ever shared an opinion or voiced a thought that can be deemed as hateful towards him. Suspicious, yes. I am a little suspicious of career intelligence operatives with counter-intel backgrounds, but Lou himself welcomed us to challenge him, question him, and yes, even doubt him. It was one of the promises he had pinned on top of his X account when he first joined up. He still has that pinned. But I do not feel this promise is always being upheld, because those who have genuine queries or raise absolute valid criticisms or concerns, for example, someone like John Greenwald, who has become persona non grata to many as the newer members of the UFO community, people who are unaware of how long he's been actively contributing to the research field, people who came into the subject off of the back of the New York Times articles, United States Navy pilot testimonies, and of course Lou Elizondo. John was branded by Lou Elizondo as a felon in a text message to me. Everybody loves to leave that out. That was made public alongside Dr. Stephen Greer and Stephen Greenstreet and others. This is, of course, not true. John is not a felon, nor are the others involved in the text message, which, again, is public and not up for question. Simply search Felon 5 Lou Elizondo on X. And this is one of the examples where genuine questioning, essentially just being a researcher, doing what you're supposed to do in this community, which is scrutinize and challenge everything to be absolutely certain of its veracity, and take it badly and given to the text message from Lou. John's questioning alongside others was apparently not seen as acceptable. And this whole thing right here that he talks about, like, none of this happens if we don't ask Lou these questions and genuinely and try to get answers on things that we've heard, especially when it comes to Lou, and then we get a fucking Felon 5 list, and I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? The only thing I could do is go to John Greenwald. It's just like, and now he and I'm going to go to the audio because this is what happened later on. Once the book came out and it was, quote, leaked, Jason Sands, who's this new fake UFO whistleblower on Twitter, who's taking money from UFO Twitter because he's job hunting, and he claims that he's having a hard time getting a job because of all of his UFO secrets, when in actuality he lost his security clearance because he was talking like a fucking crazy person. And he, in a space, said that he ate dinner with Luis Elizondo and claimed that Luis Elizondo said it was Jay from Project Unity that leaked his book and that he hates Luis Elizondo. So through a third party, just like me, we got a blackmail from Richard Butt and Rob Heatherly, who are Luis Elizondo's henchmen. Hey, you better publicly apologize to Lou, or we're going to publicly bash you, and we're going to destroy your channel, and we're going to attack you. And when they didn't get the apology, that's exactly what happened. And it's kind of happening again here with Jason Sands. It's a third-party threat. It's a third-party targeting in this case, in which, you know, Jason Sands puts out this story, and now the whole community starts targeting Jay because he is now a Luis Elizondo hater, because he leaked the book on Amazon. How did he even do that? Like, do you have evidence of that? Or are you just fucking saying that? So yeah, I'm gonna play this audio.
It on Amazon.
Yeah, he could. Yeah, I mean, dude, there's a million things he could have blamed it on. And who knows? Maybe Jason Sands is full of shit. But the point of this whole thing is, with this kind of rhetoric, at some point, someone is going to get hurt. I mean, Jay has already had run-ins with King Milkfart at a fucking UFO convention in New York City. So we're not far from it, you know? And when you put targets on people like this, it's bullshit. But I'm going to play this audio. You might have to switch over to the live stream to hear it, Manny. But I'm going to play the audio from this. And yeah, when I heard this audio too, I was taken aback. I'm like, what the fuck? So let's listen to Jason Sands in his own words, put a target on Jay from Project Unity.
Red Panda asked me a question in the DMs. He wanted to know what you thought about Lou's book and the early leak, the reviews.
Funny you bring that up. I talked to Lou directly about that when I met him just yesterday over dinner, or not yesterday, but the day before. I asked him about some of this stuff, and he just looked at me and goes, "Jay, Unity hates me."
That's Jay from Project
that's how he
Unity.
Described the leak of his book. So some of the other things in there that people are picking on him about, I think you're going to have to wait until you see his full text of his booklet out. He's got a reason for everything. He's a smart man. Okay, Lou's very smart, very well connected as well. He knows also what he's up against, and some of the things in that book are meant to do exactly what you think they're meant to do, and some of the other things are kind of a poke in the eye of some other folks, at least in my estimation, from what I've kind of read about already in the leaked document. What I'm waiting to see, though, is if this leaked document had text that was altered from his original, because it's quite. That's why I'm going to wait till the jury's out in my head until, or in my book, until I read the No Kidding book that I get, and then I'll read it for myself. But this leaked book was electronic copy. Stuff could have been switched around because when you ship out your books overseas, like to UK, which is where this leak came from, they probably were provided an electronic copy, and they obviously didn't have the full text of it. And on top of that, they could have manipulated it too if they were getting real nasty with Lou. So to me, that already discredits what's out there, and I would encourage people to just wait until the real book gets out on the streets, then read it, then talk about it, instead of a leaked document. To me, that's just suspect right away.
It's not leaked. It was an Amazon. It's not like it came out on some forum. You could see the preview on Amazon.
Well, there's two things they're talking about there, Lou. One of them is the preview that came on Amazon, the first 4 chapters that you could also search, which is what I found, is that if you did a search, it actually scanned the whole book and you could get those little snippets of the whole book. But what he's talking about there is the 185-page document that was uploaded to Scribed, which was, most of over half the book. It was most of the book up to, excluding like chapter 7, 18, 19, 20, and then 21. So, I mean, there's two different things there. And Steve Long said something there. He says, it almost sounds like he wasn't saying J Unity, like he was calling Jason Sands J. He's like, J, Unity hates me. What does that mean? Yeah. Like, if it's not Project Unity, I don't know. I understand how people could be confused. I was confused. But if he doesn't
it came from the UK.
Who does he mean?
Yeah, no, he means that. He means, because he didn't correct. Nobody apologized to Jay. Nobody said, hey, we got this wrong. Sorry, man. We didn't mean J Project Unity. This is not a Comagate Part 2. We meant Jay from this. He was talking about himself, nobody's doing that. And that was one of my complaints, because I put this out, because look, man, personally, I find Jay insufferable with the things that he tweets about. It's very sort of woo leaning. It doesn't question anything. A lot of the things he posts about are really debunkable very easily and usually pretty stupid. They're low common denominator shit. And it's frustrating in this arena where we're trying to put good information into it. It's difficult to combat this guy because he's got so many followers. He's got such an influence in this arena. But I had written, this is not okay for Elizondo to target him through Jason Sands. But, why is this acceptable behavior from Lou Elizondo? Why is it okay to burn decent people at the stake because your book sucks? It doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't agree with many things on Jay about anything, but he doesn't deserve extremists making threats at him, and which I'm sure he's getting, because if he leaked the book, that means he was doing it with malicious intent and trying to make Elizondo look like a fool, right? So I'm sure he's getting a whole bunch of threats. But my biggest question is, where the fuck is his best buddy, Ross Coulthart, who is really good friends with Elizondo? Why isn't he saying, whoa, Lou, you got this one wrong, buddy. I can tell you for sure that Jay definitely didn't leak your manifesto, and I bought him a computer. Like, he would never do that. Like, Jay, he's on our side. Don't worry about it. He's one of us. Like, and he is. He's not a threat to Lou whatsoever. He never talks about Lou the way you and I talk about Lou. He hasn't had experiences the way I've had experiences with Lou. It's like, he's not that guy. So it's weird that they would target him. It's so fucking weird. They must just not like him. I know for sure that the guys at UAP Media UK, Danny Zetterstrom and Andy from that UFO podcast, they were warning me before this whole thing with Elizondo. They would tell me warnings all the time, like, yeah, be careful with Jay. He's not a good guy. He's not one of us. He's out for himself, kind of thing. And I was like, okay, well, he seems kind of cool to me. And I still think Jay is cool. He's like a nice guy. I just think his theories and his philosophies are empty and stupid because he's never taken a philosophy course in his life. He's never gone to school for those things. He's not a real philosophy major or a deep thinker. He's just taking his CE5 experience and attaching reality to it through his show and through his, his influence. Other than that, harmless, I guess. You have any other thoughts on that?
Okay to attack him, you asked. Yeah, I mean, you asked, why is it okay to use third parties to attack him? It's not okay. It's cowardly. It's very cowardly, but it's also par for the course, going back to the Wolfpack people who he sicked on me after Who's Lou came out.
Yeah.
So a lot of the same people who were sicked on you when you kind of, were questioning after the Felon 5 thing. And, like the same people who go after Stephen Greenstreet, John Greenwald. I mean, anyone who is even remotely critical of Lou gets this all these attacks, and it doesn't come from Lou. And Lou is more than willing to let people do that. He turns a blind eye to it,
Yep.
and he actively encourages it behind the
He
scenes.
follows it. He follows it. He likes it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He was trying to get you to do it with the Felon 5 list.
Right.
That's what he was really trying to do, was to get you to blacklist all the people on that thing and start spreading around the rumor that everyone on there is a felon and they're all bad folks and get rid of them. You don't want them. I mean, that's exactly what he does, because he's a coward. He doesn't have the spine to walk up to somebody and call them out. And he doesn't want the accountability of confronting somebody like that, because he doesn't want them to punch back. Well, he wants to be able to take a knife in somebody's back and they can't turn around and sock him in the face for it.
Well, I can tell you, I can tell you 100% for sure, the conversation after this list leaked and I was finally able to be like, yeah, bro, release it. I don't give a shit. Like, let people decide what that list means. Let people decide if I read that wrong. And I think time has shown, and I have stood by my guns in that I haven't changed my story on this. Like, I still think I read it the right way. I still think it was a list of people. I still think he was calling John Greenwald a felon. Jay for Project Unity clearly thinks that. And I can tell you the thing that confirms it is the very awkward conversation that John Greenwald had with Luis Elizondo. And in that he had to be like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you calling me this? Why are you? And I wish I could have listened to that conversation, but I can imagine the tiptoeing and the dancing that Elizondo was doing to explain to John Greenwald what he meant by, oh, I didn't mean to call you a felon, but you definitely are mentally disturbed. And you're, like, and all the other things that he named on there. Like, there's no good way to spin it, and I'm sure Elizondo hung up that phone going, oh, we're good. We're cool. We're good. Like, you think Greenwald's going to forget that? Like, there's no way. And the way Greenwald handled it was so much more, stoic, than the way I handled it. Because I was like, fuck this guy. If I want to burn all of this to the ground, I don't give a shit. Like, I don't care. I don't do FOIA requests. I'm not looking for another interview. I don't care. Like, at this point, I just want to tell people what happened and make sure they understand that the series of events, how they went down, and what this guy does to people. And you figure that all of this stuff, you figure the community have been like, bro, that's fucked up, dude. We can't be fucking with Luis Elizondo. Nope. They doubled down and backed him up and threatened my life. It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. Absolutely nuts. But I mean, I think time not only has been kind to me, but it's been kind to you. It's been kind to Stephen Greenstreet. It's been kind to Greenwald. It's been kind to all of the people that had the courage to speak up and say, hey, something's not right here, and you should pay attention to this. And you were one of the first ones to do that in a medium as film. And so hats off to you, man. Like, you really deserve your flowers for being like, whoa, something's fucked up and I'm going to say something. And the bullshit that you caught from it, I can tell you, Manny, for me, before we had that interview with Lou, one of the biggest red flags was when I was getting calls from Fessler telling me to do a copyright strike on your video. And I'm like, not doing that. I'm not doing that. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense that a man from a Cuban refugee family is telling me through you, or telling you, I didn't believe that he was telling you to copyright strike this. I would think that guy from that family would have a philosophy of, yeah, I don't like it, but he's got a right to that soapbox. That's what YouTube is. He's got a right to post it. And the way he did it was fair use. That was my argument anyway. And that to me was, I was like, oh shit, like, we really can't trust this guy. We really can't trust this guy if he's trying to limit someone's free speech. And it's just like, to me, I was like, well, dude, if you think the movie isn't good or not accurate, don't talk about it. Don't mention it. Don't give it any fuel. Ignore it at every turn, and it'll go away. But he didn't do that. He didn't do that. Instead, he's sick.
Within
But I think it
72
was
hours,
good for
he was on
you.
Fessler's show. Yeah.
It was good for
And to
you
speak to your
because
point,
you won.
I
You
think
won
he
the
was trying
copyright
to-
strike.
Yes, and not just the one against Fessler, the one against the History Channel,
Yep.
and the one against To the Stars Academy as well. And that right there told me that not only that it was I onto something, but that they were really trying to crowd strike me out. That they
Yep.
were trying to get me with a 1, 2, 3 strike and get me completely banned from YouTube altogether, never to come back.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it didn't work out that way, and I was able to reverse those, which means that Tom Fessler, History Channel, and To the Stars all got their strikes on their channels and probably learned not to try to abuse the copyright system. But that does show that Lou definitely pulled some strings with Dan Farah to get History Channel to strike me for like a 3-second slide of the Unidentified show that I had up there, and
Right.
To the Stars to strike me for the clips that I played from the presser release, the fake press release,
Right.
or press
Right.
conference, not
Yeah,
release.
in front of nobody. That was funny, man. Like that. Like when I went back and started watching that through the documentary, I was like, oh yeah, there was nobody in that fucking audience. That was like a completely empty arena or whatever the hell, the auditorium, wherever they were, and they put on this whole fucking show as if they were like. Hello, everyone out there. Hello, America. Thank you to everyone who's here and
They're
participating.
looking to
in
left
this.
and right, like there's a bunch
Yeah.
of people in the crowd and a big press box,
What
and
a bunch of dicks.
Lou gives that smirk, and you're like, you guys are a bunch of fucking cheesy B actors,
yeah.
man. It's so funny to watch that thing now. Like, it's so funny to watch it and know that it's all bull crap, and to know that in 2 years they're going to fail and walk away and close the doors, be done. But I don't think it was originally. Honestly, somebody asked earlier what we thought the plan was at To the Stars those first 2 years, like the 2 years that Lou never talks about, like the whole 2 years he was there. I think they were expecting Kona Blue to pop back up in another form, and for Bigelow to get access to something that they were going to try to reverse engineer. And it's not alien spacecraft, folks. If that stuff exists, it's because some clever human beings and companies spent a shitload of money and resources creating it. It's not backwards engineered from something TRW had in the 60s. Like, that's ridiculous. We would have unveiled that already. We would have unveiled it during the Gulf War. We would have unveiled it during the other Gulf War or in Afghanistan or Iraq, so we could have got out of there sooner. Like, I mean, like, it's ridiculous. But
you know what we have unveiled is drone swarm systems, and those things were being filmed and documented by Paul Benowitz in the 90s, and those things are coming to. We're using those things all the time, all the time.
Plasma-induced hologram electronic countermeasures. We're unveiling that now too. That spoof not only the visible spectrum, so the naked eye, the human eye, but also electronic systems like radar and infrared.
Right.
Like, that's what we're doing now. And if they were testing something like that,
and
out
we're
there,
doing that through satellites and drone systems. Yeah.
Yes. I believe it's all out there. We know that some of that modified civilian forms of some of that technology have come out, where they can shoot a laser against a wall and make a voice come off the laser from vibrating, the air molecules. Like, it's crazy.
It's crazy stuff.
And I think that's what they've been trying to do forever, is get this tech declassified, so that the people like Bigelow, who came and joined the party late, who haven't had all this money over the years to reinvest into it, can then license it to compete with people like Lockheed and Boeing and our big boys. He just wants to level the playing field. And I'm like, well, that's not capitalism for you, bro. Capitalism is you need to spend more money than them and provide a better product for cheaper. It's not you steal their product and license it.
Right.
That's not how it works.
Right.
But yeah, well, we'll see where this goes. It's just interesting.
Well, somebody asked that's a bad kitty ass. Is Elizondo the new Richard Doty? What do you think?
In a way, I can understand the analogy. And in a way, I think he's more of a kind of mix between Doty and Bob Lazar. I don't think we're going to get rid of him anytime soon. I think that this book is just enshrining his place in ufology grifting. And he's going to be going to every UFO convention. He'll be in any TV show or documentary that'll have him, that'll pay him their tithing and kiss his ring. He's going to go on and just say whatever the fuck he wants, especially after his book comes out. But it's not going to be in mainstream. No mainstream people. I don't see him on 60 Minutes. I don't see Lester Holt calling him up and being like, or Anderson Cooper being like, hey,
then
I
again,
gotta have you back so you can talk about the Roswell aliens.
Yeah. Then again, neither is Doty. you know. So like I think he's a more sophisticated version of Doty. He's a little more polished. He's a better storyteller, which is actually kind of hard. I think the reason why is probably because of his resume and background is a little more impressive than Doty's. Doty's is just basically an Air Force cop, whereas you know, Elizondo was a super soldier traveling around the world, apparently. There was another great question that had to do, this is from Pip, and this is a great point, and I think it should speak volumes as to what we're looking at here. And he goes, by the way, where is Lou? Where is he? Because there's no PR, publicity, marketing, no interviews. It seems pretty odd. And I agree. And I think the reason why you're not seeing those things is because the PR companies, the publicity, the marketing companies, the news agencies who have had early access to this book, who have read it, have all gone, nothing here. There's nothing from a PR perspective to talk about because there's no real information here. It's just stories. They're just stories. So I think that's partly why we're not seeing a big PR push, you know, because we're a month out from the book, less than a month out. Yeah, you should be seeing PR on this at the worst case this month, like somewhere. You know, and when we mean PR, we mean interviews and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah,
there's no I don't see him getting put on Joe Rogan. I don't see him being called
yet.
On, you know, the
we
morning
still got
show.
a month. We still got a month. I mean, don't be shocked. I won't be shocked if the week the book comes out, we'll see a Rogan interview.
Maybe.
Wouldn't shock me. I mean, he's got to sell books to stupid people.
If you're listening, don't do it.
Well, I can tell you this. I think I don't know if it's true or not, but he doesn't need Rogan. He's got Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson at this point, I think, has a bigger podcast than Rogan. I think he just passed it, or it's really close. It's definitely in the top 5, if not top 2. So, you know, he's already got a whole nother medium of stupid people to sell this book to. He doesn't need UFO Twitter. And most of these people that are going to buy this book are not on UFO Twitter, and they have no idea about the lies and the bullshit that supersede this. And it won't shock me if there is some kind of PR push during the week of. I won't be shocked. But if there's nothing, that should tell you everything. That should tell you everything.
I mean, if he's not going to pony up a little bit of bucks to hire a publicist, or if the distributor isn't, which as much as they paid for the book, which was, I believe there was a bidding war of like 200, 220, 230. Right. It was right around there, just over $200,000. I wouldn't be surprised if they have an advertising budget and a publicity budget for it. I mean, gosh, that's just kind of, you know, that's book selling, movie selling, whatever. Everybody does that.
Well, I can tell you,
if he's not going to do that, then it's because he knows it's not any good.
$250,000 is not very high for a bidding war. Like, I've heard of book bidding wars going into the millions. You know, because especially, like, can you imagine the bidding war on an Edward Snowden if he was able to come back to the United States and author or publish a book? It would be in the multi-millions of dollars. So again, that should show you what kind of story is being pushed here. And yeah, if you've got a book for $250,000, my guess is you would dump another $250,000. Like in movie marketing, that's what they do. If the budget of the film is $100 million, then the total budget is $200 million, because $100 million is going to be used for advertising the film, and then the $100 million is actually producing the film. So I would imagine maybe something similar in books. Okay, we spent $250. That's $500,000 for this budget. You know, I think we can recoup that on a UFO book if we put it in the right venues. You know, albeit Tucker Carlson. Like all you have to do is get on Tucker Carlson, and that book is going to make its money back. And it won't shock me if it ends up on a bestseller list either. It won't shock me.
Yeah.
Which would suck.
Even though there's not a shred of evidence in it, or a fact that's been checked, or anything other than, you know, this is my truth and my stories. And honestly, it shouldn't. I hope that when people read it, they read it and they're just like, oh my God, this is just like every story I've ever heard from, you know, going back to Corso, going back to,
I think really smart people will say that. I think really smart people will say that, but all he needs to sell a script is, it was a bestseller. It was a New York Times bestseller for 1 week, 1 day. Doesn't matter. Like he could say it,
Yeah.
you know, you could say it was in the top 100 Amazon sales, you know, or whatever. There's a lot of ways to market shit and sell it to make other shit. And I think we're going to see a lot of that with Imminent. And, you know, I think, yeah, it's going to be, I think we'll get 4 versions of this bullshit. It'll get more fantastical as the versions come out, just like, you know, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. And, you know, like, I mean, by the last book, we had literally a cross on the cover. Like they're making a new religion. That's all they're doing. They're making their own religion, and they're the prophets of profit. They're the ones who get to decide who makes the money and which narrative gets pushed. And you better play ball. And if you don't, well, you're out. You're out. Simple as that.
Then we'll attack you on social media. We'll send our attack dogs to, you know, try to find any kind of dirt on you they can and smear you, and then we'll blacklist you, you know, which is, you know, they've got all these. It's almost like there's a religion that does that too. It's called Scientology, you know, that has a lot of these same tactics and techniques, which it shouldn't surprise anyone that someone like Hal Puthoff rose to a very high place in that church. You know, like, but now they're trying to shift all those same lessons and move them into their new UFO alien cult / religion. Yeah, and I think it's going to be more important as that happens that there are more people like you and I that, you know, Stephen Greenstreet, John Greenwald, Art Levine, Keith Clore, Sarah Scholes. It's going to take the whole village to raise this baby. You know what I mean? Like, we need to be out there hollering and yelling and raising hell about it the whole way.
I think so. I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think, yeah, there's a place for our constructive criticism of this nonsense. And I think a lot of people eventually end up finding their way here. But once the fantasies disappeared for them, they don't need really our show. Our show doesn't, it's not really for people who stick around. It's more for people who are like, oh, okay, that's what's really happening. Okay, I'm good. I won't check this out until I need to again. But really, it's just for the people who constantly wander into the topic and are just kind of trying to find some tangible, you know, reality-based information. And so, Manny, you were one of the first in the conversation to really do that well when it comes to the subject and discussion surrounding Luis Elizondo. Yeah, we got to have you on the show way more. We got to have you on like once a month or something. We just come here and chill out. We could talk about UFO news and bullshit in the community, because I think it's fun. It's fun. And you know what the hell you're talking about, which is also fun too, you know? So yeah, man, is there, we had Renee Cruz who put out your YouTube channel. I know you're not very active on YouTube these days. So I went ahead and also put your link to the whoslewmovie.com in the live chat, and I'm going to include it in the description of the show below once the show's over. But is there anything, you'd like to say before you get out of here, man?
Yeah, like you said, I'm not really active on YouTube very much anymore, just because of it takes a lot of time investment, of course, but I've been working on more kind of mainstream skills and production, things like that. I've been working with Bob Kiviat. We just recently released the Mandela Effect Phenomenon movie, which is on video on demand right now, and then we'll be coming, you know, once that window has run, then it'll go to streaming service. I'm not sure where it's going to end up now on one of the streaming services after that. And then we've got another documentary that we're in production on right now, and then
what's that one?
More projects right after that. So that's about the music industry, specifically Korean pop music. Nothing to do with UFOs.
Hilarious. Awesome.
Yeah. But it is an interesting subject, and so that'll be fun to do. And then there will be some more UFO content coming in the mainstream documentary form, hopefully real quick. It's kind of the market kind of depends on what people, you know, what gets funded first is the one that gets to go first. But there is definitely something in the works that should be really exciting and open up a lot more information about what's going on with this UFO thing the last few years, you know? So that'll be fun to do. Yeah. And then whoslewmovie.com is where everyone can go to watch the movie for free. There's my follow-up there, Who's to TTSA, that's about a 45-50 minute piece about To the Stars Academy, Tom DeLonge through the first part, and then kind of a mini deep dive into the forensic accounting of the To the Stars Academy SEC filings about the money that they were making, where it all went, what they were spending it on.
Yeah, well, that's what I think next time when you come on, we'll dive into the SEC filings, because that's what I really want to talk about as well, is where this money went for all this money that went into TTSA. I'd like to sort of just theorize on where that could have gone, because I think a lot of it went to the film. You don't think a lot of it went to the film. I'm interested to get your perspective on where you think all that money went. So maybe we could do that here in the next couple of weeks. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, anytime you can watch that breakdown that I did. Has a pretty good, like the first half hour of it is kind of the history of TTSA, Tom DeLonge, the talks about the press release, a lot of stuff that's covered in Who's Lou is in there and kind of repeated. But if you just want to dive into the financials, just skip to the 30-minute mark and look at the deep dive into the financials, and that'll probably answer some of your questions. But there's a lot of stuff that isn't in there too about the partnering with the Hollywood types that he brought on board after they got rid of Steve Justice, after they shut down the science division with Hal Puthoff, after Chris and Lou left. It's when they really shifted into more entertainment.
Yeah.
And there is a couple of big name guys who joined the company to really help flesh that out. And, because Tom DeLonge, as creative and as funny as he was, really had no idea about how to make a movie. And it becomes evidence when you watch Monsters of California.
No clue. I can tell you that movie was in production. That movie was in production for at least 4 or 5 years because I had played golf with one of the actors that was in the film. Just randomly. And then I didn't see the movie for another 5 years after that. So it was it was bad.
You got access to like Richard Kind, you got Casper Van Dien, and you got a low mid budget to work with, and you still come up with Bigfoot peeing in somebody's mouth and a main character that's about as believable as or starts out who's got like the mentality of a 15-year-old, and by the end of it's the Dalai Lama. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy.
If you want to see my full breakdown of that flick, I have one on the channel. Just search for it. It's definitely save your money. Is in short. But Manny, man, I appreciate you coming by. I appreciate us finally having this show and discussion and all the work that you've done. I look forward to having more discussions with you. But stick around for a minute. I want to talk to you after the show ends because I want to tell you about something I'm working on. But I haven't been able to tell really anybody else. It'll be cool.
I love it, man. I'll hang out, and I would love to come back at some point and talk TTSA with you, man. And we'll go over some of the documents that I found and some of the different companies and people that are big names, but that nobody's really heard of. You know what I mean? Like mystery folks and things like that. You'll find it interesting. And I think the viewers will as well. I think everybody out there will as well too. So, all right, thanks for having me on, Lou, and thanks to everyone who came to listen to us talk, man. I appreciate you. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for you folks. So make sure you like, share, subscribe, and pass this the links for this video on your social media so everyone else can get a piece of the truth too.
Exactly.
We'll see you all around.
All right, man. I appreciate it, buddy. Thanks, man. All right, guys. That was Manny 503. And that was a fun discussion. Like you said, like, share, subscribe, share the fuck out of this discussion because I thought it was a really, really good one. We'll be having more in the future just because there's so much more to go over with this whole timeline. There's just so much to talk about. And with books coming out and I'm sure at some point we're going to be getting another congressional hearing. So that'll be fun to talk to with people like Manny. So it's stay tuned. I want to say thank you to everyone who donated super chat questions. I really appreciate it. Appreciate everyone in the chat. Wise Monkey, Jason Parker, Zim, Sue Fork, Renee Cruz, all of my mods. Everyone who is here. Appreciate it. With that said, I'm not sure what we'll be talking about on Monday, but I'm sure it'll be something. We'll see. In the meantime, you guys, please, again, don't forget to smack that like, share, subscribe button. Ring the bell. That way you're notified anytime we go live. And if you want to support the show with the almighty dollar, we really appreciate it. Links in the description below. We've got, obviously, you've seen super chats and memberships to the YouTube channel. So if you want to do that, incredibly helpful to making sure that this show happens twice a week. Once again, thank you for embarking on this journey of discovery together. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and thank you for subscribing to Lou Reviews. Until next time, you guys have a wonderful weekend. Love you all. Peace. it.